Well, they're working around the clock to try and restore, protect and promote learning and teaching. In Vuwani, the area has seen the disruption of learning and teaching when some residents protested against the Demarcations Board decision to incorporate their area into a new municipality. Well, I'm joined now by the National Education Collaboration Trust CEO, Mr. Godwin Khosa. Very good evening to you, sir, and thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Good evening, and good evening to the listeners.
You've now seen what's happening. That's the latest coming out of the area. What do you make of this idea that's taken root in Vuwani by the disgruntled few, they say, that they want to stop this merger that's on the cards with municipalities by withholding votes? What do you make of that?
So I think, right from the start, I need to indicate that, our involvement in Vuwani has to do with the education, aspect of it and how, young people have been affected, but by what I think is a complex political, activity and space. It does have an extension into schools, and the kind of extension that it has into schools is in two ways. I mean, one, it's the governance of the schools, which is, broadly about how the community organizes itself together with the teachers and the learners to provide one of the most critical social services education. The other part, of course, is how the developments there have impacted on the ability of learners to cover the required curriculum in the given ages and grades. So the withholding of the votes, I think, simply indicates that there is still some tensions, that are simmering. But from the work that we've been involved in Vuwani, I mean, since the past week and a half, we've seen, developments, a number of, community organizations getting together to talk about, how kids have to be, the environment created for kids to get back to school. The community met, traditional leaders met, and were given the message that the community is ready now to release the learners back into the schools. The Pastors Forum met today, and they also were looking for ways in which to support that. Teachers are meeting, school governing bodies are meeting. And I think tomorrow is a big day for all of us. The local government elections. And I must say that, having regular elections is a very important, critical element of democracy. But democracy does not happen over one day. So the principles that promote democracy should be upheld before, during, and after the elections. And the one very important institution in every society that actually should promote those principles is the schools. We should educate our young people from the very young age about the importance of these, democratic principles.
Talk to us about the political dynamic within the area right now. I want to talk about the role of the chiefs. You've mentioned the organizations that have a role to play and so forth. And then, if you can add, do you believe that there are still rogue elements, if one can call it that would want to destabilize the processes that have been embarked on now?
So we've been working with the chiefs, with traditional leaders, religious leaders, business people, community people before before April, May, when all these developments, emerged. I must say that we have continued to work with some very constructive, traditional leaders. We have always put, ahead the importance of education and the importance of their communities. Whether there are still rogue elements, I think that's a matter that we have to carefully, comment on based on evidence. And I think the best placed agencies, to comment on is the safety, agencies.
What sort of interventions would you like to see next? And I'm not talking about the voting process, that's separate tomorrow. I'm talking about the interventions you'd like to see for the benefit of the children that have missed a whole chunk of schoolwork this year. How do we catch up this year, or is it a scenario that it has to be written off and start again?
Well, we can't afford to write off those learners, those cohort of learners. Firstly, I think the community must create the environment for learners to go back to school, and we're hoping that 7 o'clock on the 4th, which is on Thursday actually, we will have learners back in class, and teachers will be allowed to interface with learners and do what they're supposed to do to deliver education. There's a big task, for everyone involved, learners, teachers, parents, to work together to rechunk the way the curriculum is supposed to be delivered, and to find extra time to cover, the lost time. I don't think that there's a possibility to cover entirely what we have lost. A curriculum delivery is a very complex exercise. In a given year, we have about 40 weeks to do that. And in the case of one where the kids have lost about 12 weeks, it's going to be very, very, very difficult to enable the learners to cover all what they should have covered in a given year, in spite of the fact that teachers and learners have agreed to forego, holidays and to extend teaching times and so forth.
So there is that level of goodwill to catch up and to make it work for the community and the children. Now, tell us a little bit about your expectation. Do you expect the residents of Vuwani to go to the polls tomorrow and really signal their intentions, if one can call it that?
So the truth is, this need for a level of maturity. I don't think that they should forego, the voting opportunity. They should express their views through the ballot. Our engagement with that community over the time, indicates that you don't have a homogeneous community, and I think given a situation where there's no intimidation, there's no violence, people, matured community members will walk to the voting station tomorrow.
In conclusion, for us to look forward instead of looking backwards, the lasting solution for Vuwani within this very, very difficult conundrum that the community, traditional leaders, government, even within the tribal paradigm are stuck with. What do you think is the lasting solution for Vuwani to overcome this and not to repeat the same issues that we've seen in the recent past?
So Vuwani must use as a case, not just for the Vuwani people, but for all the districts and municipalities and communities in South Africa. We're going to have to take a leaf out of this. I think we need to reflect quite deeply about the relationship between the community and the state, and the state and the community. The fact that the schools have been provided, through the state, does not mean that the schools belong to the state. Those schools belong to the communities.
Absolutely.
And I think we have got to find practical ways of getting communities to own the facilities and amenities that are provided in communities. Has to be a whole lot of social processes of rebuilding the social capital. And I think beyond where we were when the Vuwani case started.
Mr. Khosa, thank you very much for joining us. Godwin Khosa is the CEO of the National Education Collaboration Trust, and we're talking about Vuwani, a community that's on tenterhooks this evening. There are expectations of protest by not going to the polls. That's on the one side. The other side, show the community and do it on behalf of the children is the other sentiment. What will happen in Vuwani, you'll be able to see on this very channel over the next 24 to 48 hours. This is SABC News. We'll be back after a short break.